Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And this is CrimeDivers.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode.
Hello everyone, welcome back.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Yep, here we are for another CrimeDivers episode. So Jill, where in the world are we?
Right, we're in Poland.
Uh-huh.
And I know that the city can be pronounced different. I pronounce it as Krakow.
Uh-huh.
And I know some people pronounce it as Krakow.
I would say Krakow, personally.
Right, you say Krakow, I say Krakow, so I did look it up and it can be pronounced both ways.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just going to go what I've always called it, because it's just going to, I'll just end up pronouncing it that way anyway.
Yeah.
So
That's your natural tongue.
that's just the way that I've always said it, so that's the way I'm going to go. So we're in Krakow in Poland.
Okie dokie. And the title of your episode?
It's A Lust for Blood.
Okay. Shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. So we're going to talk about Karol Kot, but that's not a woman. This is a boy. He's male.
Right, okay.
And his name is spelled with a capital K.
Right.
So it's Karol. So obviously we would think that was a female name. But it's
Is it
actually
pronounced Carol and not Carol?
Carol. Well, in the documentary that I watched,
Uh-huh.
they pronounced it Carol, so...
I
I'm
thought
going with
maybe
that.
it was like Carl, but Carol, we'll go with.
Yeah, because you go with Carol without the O.
Yeah.
But from the documentary that I watched, they pronounced it Carol.
Right, okay.
So that's the way I'm pronouncing it. If it's wrong, I do apologise.
Okay.
So, Karol Kot was born on the 18th of December 1946 in Krakow, Poland. His dad was an engineer and his mum was a stay-at-home mum. So they were described as a middle-class, respectable family. When Karol was 8, his little sister was born, which apparently unsettled him a bit, as for 8 years he'd been used to being the centre of attention. Mm-hmm. And he actually said later that his parents loved his sister more than him. But obviously that's just what he thought. You know, that obviously, according to his parents, that wasn't the case. Yeah. But that's how he felt. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, because of that, he abused her, his sister, because...
It was just jealous and...
Yeah, he thought that his parents loved her more than him, so he abused her. Right. So you can tell right for the start, this is not a nice person.
No, definitely not.
And he also abused their 2 cats. He would throw them at the walls, and he was just cruel to the cats. I'm not going into animal cruelty because there's just absolutely no need, but it was cruel to the cats and his sister.
Uh-huh.
So in the summer holidays, the family would travel to a place called Pachim, which is 30 miles south of Krakow, and that's where Karol developed a fascination with slaughterhouses. So he was maybe about 10 or 11 by now, and he would ask his parents to go and visit the slaughterhouse, when they're on holiday.
Uh-huh.
You know.
I didn't realise that was a visitor's attraction.
No, well, obviously I didn't either. But that's where he realised that he had a fascination with blood.
And they would take him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll sort of tell you a bit in a minute.
All right.
He realised he had a fascination with blood. He would talk about how it was still warm, and it was he was fascinated by how it was still warm because it had just been in something that was alive just a moment ago, and then it came out and it's still warm, and he said it was just something really special to him.
Okay.
But yeah, with regards to the slaughterhouse, there was one incident when he was at the slaughterhouse, and the men who worked there drained blood into a cup. I think it was the pig's blood, into a cup, and they passed it to Karol just sort of as a joke, and they were expecting him to freak out, ooh, look, here's some blood kind of thing. But he took the cup and he drank it.
Oh my God.
So it was actually them that were freaked out, because they were what the fuck?
Yeah, what has he just done? Oh, no.
So yeah, this carries on. Can you stop bouncing about in the chair?
So I can't get comfy.
Well, get comfy.
I'm fine, just kind of.
Well, I keep hearing you make a noise because that chair's squeaky.
Sorry, I'll sit still.
Oh, you're acting like a child that's just been told off now.
I am.
Yeah, so when he was on holiday in the countryside, rather than playing outside, maybe going for a swim, you know, like most children would on holiday, he just wanted to cut up animals and drink their blood.
That is disgusting.
So you can understand why the title of this is A Lust for Blood.
But then where were his parents at that moment? Were they standing there?
Yeah.
Because I would have been like, right, son, that's it. We're not going back to anywhere like that again after that's just happened.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I'm not quite sure where his parents were when he was doing this. I mean, they obviously knew that he was visiting the slaughterhouse because it says he would ask his parents to take him.
I still don't...
Whether they were actually seeing what he was doing when he was there, I don't know. I mean, maybe they just thought...
Oh, well, we'll drop you off, son. We'll pick you up later. I mean...
No. I mean, like, maybe they thought that this was... It could be a career choice later on in life. Like, it was something that he was interested in, as in a you know,
a working sense and not like
not
an obsession.
Like not a fascination. I have no idea because, as I said, he was only like 10 or 11, so
okay.
I don't know. But he also developed a love of knives, and he said that knives were his biggest love, and carrying a knife made him feel important and powerful. So he used to carry a knife about with him.
Right.
So, and he soon started thinking about like how it would feel to put a knife into a human body. But he didn't have the courage yet, so he started hurting small animals.
Mm-hmm.
And he realised that seeing the blood made him feel excited.
Isn't that how it always seems to happen, isn't it? Where
It does.
They start with animals and then they
a
move
lot of serial
on.
killers start that way. Because I think, as I said, like, he said he didn't have the courage yet. That was his word. He didn't have the courage yet, so he's just started off trying it on animals first.
Sure.
That's awful, isn't it?
Innocent animals.
I know. Anything.
Well, yeah, anything, obviously.
Yeah, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
So while at school, Karol joined a target shooting club where he met a girl called Danusia and he became obsessed with her. He seems to get obsessed with a lot of things.
He's obviously got a very obsessive personality.
Yes, it definitely sounds like it. Mm-hmm. So Danusia, she was 6 years older than him, but they became friends. But well, she treated him like a friend, but he viewed her more than that. Like, he thought that he was in love with her, and,
right.
you know, but she's like, this is a little boy that's 6 years younger than me,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. We're just like friends and that's it.
Because we're in the same shooting club.
Yeah, you got something in common, I suppose.
Yeah, but he wanted to impress Danusia, and he revealed to her, like, some of his sadistic fantasies, and he told her about some of the cruel acts that he had committed, but she didn't actually believe what he was saying. She was just like, oh, he's just a stupid little boy, he's trying to impress me. Mm-hmm. You know, and she said she certainly wasn't impressed.
I was going to say that, like, that would not impress me at all.
Yeah, that's what she thought he was doing. Like, he's just making it up to impress me.
Yeah.
So one day they were on a shooting club outing, and he couldn't. Could not get that out. I was trying to say he couldn't, but it was actually me that couldn't. He couldn't contain his violent urges, so he decided to prove to Danusia that he was telling the truth, and he attacked her, and he tried to strangle her. He then pulled out a piece of broken glass from his pocket and told her that he wanted to cut her wrists and throw her into the river so that it would look like suicide.
Oh my God, that's
so
awful.
But she actually responded in a very interesting way.
Okay.
She actually laughed. She just didn't take it seriously. Again, she was just like, he's a little boy. Because if you have to think about, if they're at school and there's 6 years between them, then, for instance, like if you start high school, you're like, what, 12?
13,
and for somebody who's 6 years older, that's 18. So you're talking about somebody who's at the start of school and somebody who's at the end of school. So that is just a little boy, isn't it? Like,
oh, yeah. And, like, you wouldn't normally... Well, I wouldn't think that you maybe would feel threatened by...
Well, unless he was quite a big kid, he probably wouldn't be able to overpower you because he probably would be still quite small.
Yeah.
Because you'd be, like, quite grown up by this point.
But yeah, you probably would just laugh it off because you would never think that anybody would be being serious about something like that. So I can understand probably why she did laugh.
Yeah. I mean, she just didn't take it seriously, and she said to him, everyone knows we're together right now, so if you kill me, you're going to get caught. Mm-hmm. You know, like, nobody's going to believe. And he was like, all right, okay. So, whether he was going to actually do it or not, you know, she might have just saved her own life by doing that. Uh-huh. So, good for her.
I would be like, right, I'll never see you again.
Yeah,
see you later.
See ya. Not nice knowing you.
No.
So on the 21st of September 1964, Karol was 17 and he was still at school, and he decided to attack a stranger for the first time. So he obviously found his courage. Mm-hmm. So he said he just had an urge and he couldn't control it. So he walked around town with a knife in his hand, just looking for somebody, just anybody.
Just anybody.
He says he thought he would just search for a woman who was alone because, you know...
Easy target.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So he went to a nearby church and he just sat and waited, hoping a woman would come in to pray. So he sat for a while and he was actually just about to give up and leave, but then a 48-year-old woman called Helena Velgen entered the church. She knelt down to pray and Karol grabbed a German military bayonet from its sheath, and he stabbed her in the back, hoping to get to her heart.
Oh.
And then he ran off. And when he got around the corner, he licked the blood off the knife.
No.
And I'll tell you now, that's what he did every time he stabbed somebody. He would lick the blood off the knife.
Disgusting.
And when somebody's been stabbed, this is what I've seen a sort of doctor person say, that when someone is stabbed, they usually describe it like feeling like you've been punched, like you don't necessarily realise that you've been stabbed. Because you don't necessarily get that sharp feeling that you'd expect, and most people don't realise they've been stabbed until they see the blood. But Helena, she didn't realise that she'd been stabbed until she'd actually left the church.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, she must have been able to feel that somebody hit her. I think she had seen him, because I think she did give a description, so I think she had seen him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, she just thought he came and punched her and ran off or whatever. Yeah. But, I mean, she might not have, I don't even think she felt any pain. She went into a shop and someone said to her, do you realise you've got blood all over your clothes? And that's when she realised.
Oh, wow.
And luckily she survived the attack.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah, so only 2 days later, on the 23rd of September 1964, Karol was on the prowl again. Like 2 days later, come on.
Well, he'd obviously got his taste for it now.
Yeah.
His lust for blood.
Aye, exactly. So his next target was an elderly woman chosen at random. He saw her getting off a tram, and he followed her until she entered her apartment building. He went up behind her, and he stabbed her in the back, and again, licked the blood off the knife.
Yuck.
So this was 78-year-old Francesca Lewandowska. And she survived the attack, but unfortunately stabbing, it pierced her backbone and she had problems walking for the rest of her life.
Oh, what a shame.
So, with both of these victims, Karol, he had been intending on killing them, but he just didn't hang around long enough to make sure of it. He was just stabbing them.
And running off.
And just assuming that he'd got them and ran off.
Right.
So, the news of the shocking attacks rattled the people of Krakow, but that only served to embolden Karol. He was like, you know...
I'm getting away with this.
And look at this fuss that I'm causing. You know, it's obviously making him feel good.
Yeah.
So, I'd like, cause, you know, there would have been a fear in the community, and you know that he was the one that created that fear.
Yeah.
Like that would have been something that he would have really enjoyed.
Yeah, I guess his confidence would. Be, getting higher and higher.
Yeah, this was just going to escalate his crimes. Yeah, and they were going to be more violent as he was seeing the fear that he was creating. So, just 6 days later, on the 29th of September 1964, Karol spotted an elderly woman near a nunnery in Krakow. He followed her into the nunnery and he stabbed her from behind, but this time he drove the knife into her with more force than his other victims. Because obviously, you know, he realised that he hadn't killed the other one, so he was like trying to do it a bit harder. So this lady was 86-year-old Maria Plishta. She was still alive when a nun found her, and she just said 2 words, young boy. So she was rushed to the hospital, and Karol actually visited the hospital to ask how she was doing, because he wanted to kill. He was wanting to find out if he'd killed this woman. And unfortunately, she died the next day. So the autopsy report said that the wound wasn't deep, but it went right through the back, through the muscles, and ended up in the backbone. So the conclusion was that because of the pain and shock related to the stabbing in the back, her heart gave out and she died.
What a shame.
I know, absolutely awful. So, of course, this was headline news across Poland. Panic broke out in Krakow and people were afraid of going out, especially women. Like people were warned not to go out alone, and especially not to church, because we'd had the one in the church, we'd had the one in the nunnery, you know.
Yes, they thought that was a connection.
Yeah, there was a connection. So the victims had all said that they'd seen a young boy, someone who looked young enough to be a schoolboy. The reaction in the community was like disbelief, like, why would a schoolboy be attacking people? But in the autumn of 1964, Karol's knife attack suddenly stopped.
Okay.
So it's thought that he just calmed down because, after killing someone, because it was like he finally managed what he wanted to do, and maybe they thought that was enough for now, you know, like, I've done it,
He got a satisfaction.
Yeah, like, because obviously the first couple he didn't manage to kill them, so that's why he kept going on, and then he was like, right, 3rd time lucky, I've done it, I've killed somebody, I'm happy now.
Yeah.
And he continued his life as normal, like, he was still going to school. Can you imagine that, like, a school kid?
I know.
Doing things like that, and, like, just going to school and, like continuing with their studies as normal, like...
And all these like kids that are sitting next to him potentially in class or friends with him, whatever, and totally just shows you don't truly know somebody.
No, of
at
course
all.
not.
They can be hiding many secrets.
So, yeah, and he was still at school, and he was still in the shooting club as well, and he was just happy that he'd gotten away with murder, basically. But although he wasn't attacking people, he was still committing other crimes.
Mm-hmm.
He was setting fires and even tried to poison random people.
All right.
So he decided that he wanted to kill a large number of people. So he decided to change his method from stabbing to poisoning, because you can do that to like multiple people with less effort.
Yeah.
So this just goes to show how reckless he is and how much he did not care. He bought some arsenic and he went to a pub. He took a bottle of vinegar from the counter and laced it with arsenic, hoping that someone would use it later and be poisoned. So he just didn't care who it was.
No, just whoever.
And like sometimes like he would leave out bottles of beer or juice like out in the open, in like busy places, poisoned with arsenic, hoping that someone would drink them.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you know, that's not what normal people do. They don't walk along the street and find half-drank bottle of juice or beer and drink it.
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't do that. Definitely.
Well, would you do that? Or even if you were out in a busy place somewhere, would you actually see a half-drunk bottle of anything, liquid, pick it up and drink it?
No danger.
Well, luckily nobody did.
Thank God nobody did.
So nobody got poisoned.
Good.
So, but one time he even poured arsenic into one of his friends' drink at school.
My God.
So, but the boy noticed that it had a funny smell, so he was like, nah, I'm not drinking that, luckily.
Thank God, yeah.
So luckily, after all that, he didn't manage to poison one single person.
Thank God for that.
Not for luck of trying, but he didn't poison anyone. So that's when he turned to arson.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought, well, if I can't poison people, I'll just set fire.
Yeah,
and,
why not?
You know. So he committed at least 4 arsons, but we only know about them from his testimony later on when he got caught.
Right.
They were failed arsons, which is why nobody knew about them. He couldn't even set a fire properly.
I mean, thank God.
Yeah, I know, thank God. But I'm just laughing because it's just like, you're not doing very well, are you? I mean, like...
It just doesn't sound... It's like he almost went from, like, not professional to amateur, but it's like, you know, you think, like, you managed to kill somebody and stab somebody and all the rest of it, and then normally after that they tend to get worse, but yet he seemed to get worse at doing stuff.
I mean, it would have been worse if he'd actually succeeded.
Well, yeah.
But the fact that he's so stupid... And, like, you know... But, yeah, so 2 examples of them was... One that was he poured gasoline on some rags in a room and he would hope it would start a fire, but it just went out. It just didn't go anywhere. And another one was he tried to set an attic on fire. He said there was smoke and a bit of fire, but it just died out.
Right.
So he was shit at being an arsonist and a poisoner.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness he was.
I know. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing. I mean, I'm just laughing because I just the stupidity. Like, if you're going to do something, at least do it properly. But
yeah, thank goodness.
Thank goodness he didn't, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, I just anyway. So by February of 1966, which was 17 months after Karol had committed his first murder, he couldn't contain his urge to kill again because, like, obviously he was getting fed up because he hadn't managed to kill anybody. So he didn't want to kill older women anymore, though. He wanted to kill children.
Oh.
So on the Sunday the 13th of February, he went to Koshkushko, sorry if that's wrong, Koshkushko Mound, where there was a toboggan,
yeah.
God, I'm not doing very well. A toboggan contest for children was being held.
Right.
And Karol was just wandering around looking for a victim, and he spotted an 11-year-old boy called Leszek Karek, who was walking to the competition. Leszek was a little bit late, so there was like no one else around because everybody was already there. So obviously he was like, "This is my opportunity."
Yeah.
So he grabbed Leszek and turned him to face him, and he stabbed him 11 times, which is much more violence than he's used before. And it was a brutal attack, and Karol, he just walked away licking his knife, leaving the little boy to bleed to death.
That's awful.
I know. Then he went to the patisserie, bought some cakes for his family, and took them home as treats for his family.
Well, like nothing had happened.
Yeah. The autopsy revealed that Karol had punctured every major organ in Leszek's body.
Oh, wow.
So the stabs were deep, the strikes damaged the aorta, the heart, the lungs, and the liver. So Leszek he had no chance of surviving. There was just no way he was going to survive.
No chance whatsoever.
So by now, Karol was 19 and had viciously attacked 4 people with a knife, killing 2 of them, and he wasn't finished.
Wow.
And he's 19.
I know, I mean, that's absolutely awful.
I know. So on the 14th of April 1966, so that was 2 months after he killed Lessig, Karol struck again. So he hid in the stairwell of a city tenement building and he waited for a suitable victim to attack. After a while, a 7-year-old girl came down the stairs to collect the mail. He jumped out, grabbed her with one hand and stabbed her with the other. He stabbed her 8 times in the stomach, chest and back and left her wounded and bleeding. I didn't see her real name, I don't think it was reported, but she was referred to as Małgosia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm calling her because I don't know what her real name is.
Right, okay.
So Małgosia, she managed to get herself back up the stairs to her apartment, and she was rushed to hospital where they saved her life.
Oh, thank God.
So, yeah. So apparently 4 days later, Karol returned to the scene as he wanted to know the girl's name. So he knocked on the door and asked her mum what her name was. So I'm assuming he just kind of pretended to be like a well-wisher or something. You know, I just came to see how your daughter's getting on. Like, what's her name again? You know, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, just...
Very strange.
Yeah, very strange. But thankfully she survived.
Yeah.
But can you imagine the nightmares she must have had for the rest of her life, basically?
Probably, yeah.
Like, oh.
Horrible.
I mean, that's what people don't realise. I mean, yeah, I know he intended to kill her, but he didn't kill her, and she's going to be left with that for the rest of her life.
No, exactly.
It's
Because, I
awful.
mean, she probably be living in fear or just...
That could really fuck somebody's life up.
Oh,
They could
definitely,
be scarred for the rest of their life.
Totally.
So Karol, he actually confessed to attacking Małgosia to Danusha. Remember? His friend, the woman that he was still obsessed with.
Uh-huh.
So there was no remorse or anything. It was just more like, look at me, look what I can achieve kind of thing. Thinking that she should be impressed by it.
Yeah.
But again, you know, just like before, she didn't believe him. So, but later she actually read a story in the local newspaper about a stabbing, and that's when she realised that he'd been telling the truth.
Right, okay. And probably thinking, thank God he didn't do it to me.
Yeah, but I do kind of get where she's coming from though, because I do think it would be really hard to believe that somebody that you know is such a vicious
I fully believe
killer.
that if somebody that I knew quite well came up to me and told me things like that, I'd be thinking, yeah, right, you're joking.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you would believe it because...
I think especially because of his age, because as I said like before, I mean, he was only like 11, 12 or whatever, so especially back then, and even now, he's only 19, so he'll still be quite immature and stuff.
Yeah.
So...
I know, I think you're like,
yeah,
it is that your backside.
It is that thing with like the case of like, it'll never happen to me, as in, or I will never know somebody who does that, you know.
Yeah, you just don't believe things like that.
Yeah, so she actually talked to a psychiatrist about Karol's confession, and he advised her to go immediately to the police. So she went to the psychiatrist first before going to the police. But she did go to the police, so that's the main thing. So that, along with the description that his surviving victims had given, Karol was now the prime suspect of all these attacks.
Well, it fits. The age and stuff.
Yeah, so they didn't immediately arrest him though. Between the months of April and July, they placed him under surveillance. And the reason for that was that they wanted to be absolutely sure that he was sane, because they didn't want him trying to get off with it with pleading insanity. So they wanted to be sure that he was sane. So how they could prove that was to let him do his school exams. Because remember, he was still at school.
Yes, of course.
So the police waited until the day after his exams to arrest him.
Wow, very sensible.
Which, yeah, it was really risky because he was a violent offender, but he was under surveillance, so hopefully it was close surveillance.
Yes.
But he didn't attack anyone else, probably because he was too busy studying. You know, at that point he probably was like just leading a normal life, studying for his exams.
Yeah.
So they actually arrested him at school.
Oh.
So, you know, and so that kind of hits home just how young he was when he was committing these attacks. Like, the police actually... Can you imagine being at school and the police coming in and arresting one of your schoolmates for a brutal attacks and murder?
You'd be shocked to the
Like,
core.
oh.
Yeah, you just would be.
That would be unreal. So, however, Karol denied any involvement in the attacks. But the 2 women who survived his attacks, Helena and Francesca, were brought to the police station and they identified him immediately. And he even shouted to one of them that if she wanted, he would finish off killing her.
Oh,
so He was denying it, and then he's like, actually, I'm going to finish it off.
Yeah.
Like, right,
So
okay
you've
then.
just really
Sit
confessed
down.
to that. Hi. You've confessed to the crime now.
Yeah, so and after that he did. He confessed his crimes and he revelled in it. He thought he was something special, thought he was wonderful. So he also told the police about his arson and the poisoning attempts. I said, like, they didn't know about all that until he told them.
I probably would never have known about that
No,
if he hadn't told them.
If he hadn't told them, but...
He was also just trying to boast and
Yeah,
stuff about
exactly.
that.
He was proud of it. He was proud of himself. And he told the police in elaborate detail why he killed and talked... and when he talked about the attacks, it was like it gave him pleasure. You know, they could see it, that this was making him happy to talk about the attacks. And the press gave him the nickname the Vampire of Krakow, which of course made him happy, which is why I didn't call the episode this. I thought, nah, I'm not going to call it that.
Oh no, because I had that. Oh, and plus I had that.
No, you had the Vampire of Dusseldorf.
Well, close enough, yeah. We don't need another vampire.
I thought, did we not have another vampire, no?
No,
Just the Vampire of Dusseldorf.
Yeah.
So I bet there's a lot more.
No, probably.
So he so he probably thought it made him like the Vampire of Krakow. Mm-hmm. He probably thought it made him important, and it was fitting because he hadn't only killed, he had drank the blood of his victims. Mm-hmm. He said openly that when he killed or maimed his victims, he took pleasure in licking the blood off the knife of the blade.
Yuck.
Now, the knife of the blade?
Aye, the blade of the knife.
The blade of the knife. Do you know, I've even got it written down as the blade of the knife, and I still read it wrong. Oh. It's the heat is getting to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah! Oh! Just for our listeners, Laura has just squished me in the face with cold water because we're having a heat wave and I'm sweating, and she thought it would be funny just to squish me in the face. Squish my legs. Oh, that's fair. Okay. And I got it right. Oh, that's good. That's good. So, where was I? You knocked me off there.
Sorry.
So, as we know, police do reenactments, a common technique, and there are many reasons to do that. One of the most important reasons is that a reenactment is one of the ways that police determine whether or not a person claiming to be a killer is the real killer, or if it's just somebody, you know, seeking fame. I've never understood that.
No.
So the reenactment will show if that person committed the crime in a way that is consistent with the physical evidence. It just makes them sure that they've got the right person. Mm-hmm. So after he was arrested in July 1966, 19-year-old Karol gleefully participated in the reconstructions of his crimes. And there is actually photos of it online where he's like, you know, I think he had his arm around some woman or something like that and pretend to stab her, and, you know, because this is the reenactment. Yeah. And you can see the pleasure in his face.
I bet he was wishing he was doing it for real.
Ugh. So a reconstruction, obviously, it can be a useful thing to do, you know, it enables witnesses' memories to be jogged. Sometimes it leads to new evidence. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it's thought that he got more out of it than what anyone else did. Which is just sick, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was like he was directing a show. Because he was like saying to the cameraman, like, oh, you know, put the lights here because, like, I'm going to be standing over here, so we're going to have, like, the lighting won't be good. We need to have good lighting, you know, you don't want to get me in the bad lighting. Okay. And, yeah, exactly. Like, he obviously felt like he was important. He was in charge. He had a crowd of people around him, and he was just showing off.
Yeah.
He was asked by a policeman if it felt the same, reliving it. And he went, yeah, but it's missing one thing, the blood. That's all it was. It was just seemed to be this obsession with blood.
Yeah. Ugh.
So, if there had been any doubts among the police officers as to Karol's guilt, his reaction during the reconstruction showed them that they didn't need to have any doubts.
No. He was the man.
Yeah, it was just obvious that he was the killer as they made reconstructions of all 5 attacks and all the details were matching up. He didn't show any remorse, he was proud of what he did, he described the attacks perfectly, and it even showed how he licked the blood off the blade after each stabbing. I know every single time I've said that he's licked the knife, you have just went, oh, yuck, I mean, that's really...
I just can't imagine.
Disgusted face.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, obviously, we've all tasted blood, because I'm sure we've all, like, if we've cut our finger or whatever, we've all sucked our own blood to try and stop it bleeding, etc. But I don't take any...
It's horrible.
It does, isn't it? It's not pleasurable in the slightest, and, you know, I do it because I just want to stop my finger from bleeding or whatever, but it's just...
I don't do that anymore. I think I've done it before in the past, but now it's like, no, get a tissue or something.
No, it depends where you are and what you're doing, but yeah, I mean, it's...
I just wipe it on my clothes or something.
Right. But anyway, my point being is it's not an enjoyable experience.
Well, obviously it was for him.
And especially the thought of it being somebody else's.
Yeah.
Oh, yuck. Right, okay. Can we just
move on? So Karol Kot was put on trial in Krakow on the 3rd of May 1967. He was on trial for 2 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder and 4 counts of arson. The 10 counts of attempted murder were 4 by knife and 6 by poisoning. So 64 witnesses testified at the trial. Many took to the stand to vouch for Carol's character. Because initially everybody was defending him because nobody believed that he would do this.
So what, they just thought he was making up stories?
I think so, yeah. I mean, like, they got the wrong person because obviously they knew these attacks had been happening.
Yeah.
And he was sort of maybe, I don't know if like his friends and family knew that he admitted it to her, or they just thought that police had came and got him and they were wrong. But yeah, even like his school teachers. I mean, there's even a letter in the files written by his shooting club trainer that showed his support for Karol and his innocence. You know, just like nobody thought
that he was capable of doing it
until they were in the courtroom.
Aye.
By Carol's behaviour in the courtroom shocked everybody, as he obviously relished the limelight. He was happy. He was laughing while his friends were testifying. He was waving at them. Like, he was loving being the centre of attention. And as I said before, you could see he was just proud of what he'd done. And he just showed, he just showed a complete disregard for his victims and their families. Like, as I said, no remorse whatsoever.
Yeah.
If he felt sorry for anything, it would have been just because he got caught. He was sorry because he got caught. That would have been the only thing he would have been sorry for. So he said in court that killing gave him pleasure, and if he hadn't been caught, he would have carried on killing. His friends and family support disappeared, not surprisingly. So once they realised and heard him speaking in court, they were like, okay then. So usually the perpetrators of such killings try to defend themselves. They try to come up with like any line of defence. All the excuses they come up with to try and get away with it. But he didn't do that. He considered himself a murderer, but not an evil person.
I don't know how you can associate that with the...
Well, I'll tell you what he thinks, obviously. In his words, evil men were drunkards, and those who had sex with prostitutes. So that's what evil is.
Oh, okay.
An evil man is somebody who is an alcoholic who has sex with prostitutes.
There's plenty of men out there that do that, and
he must think they're evil.
I was going to say, I'm sure they're...
And they haven't murdered anybody.
I wouldn't agree with their choice of ways to do things, but I mean, I'm not necessarily mean they're an evil person.
Well, no, but he thinks that.
Right, okay.
And he viewed himself as only a murderer. So that's not evil. Just the drinking and having sex with a prostitute is evil. But murdering somebody, no.
He's deluded.
And he said, quote, "Suffering is beauty, and inflicting pain and suffering on someone is a work of art. Not everyone can do it," end quote. You're right, not everybody can do it, but that's nothing to do with beauty and a work of art. It's murder. Yeah. It's killing somebody. It's taking somebody's life. Exactly. Taking somebody away from their family.
Exactly.
Their friends. So, on the 14th of July, 1967, Karol was sentenced to death. An appeal based on diminished responsibility began on the 22nd of November 1967, and his sentence was changed to life imprisonment. However, a higher court appeal reinstated the original sentence on the 11th of March 1968, and he was hanged on the 16th of May 1968. And after being sentenced to death, he said, quote, "The pleasure I felt when the knife was cleaving the meat, it's impossible to describe the feeling. The experience is worth the gallows," end quote. So dying was worth it. It was like killing. It was worth dying for, basically.
I just had no words.
Okay, so we'll just finish the episode then.
I know, but that's just one sick, twisted individual that had a seriously sick obsession.
And there just doesn't seem to be any where it came from.
Like, why did he...
I mean, I know, like, you can't blame your childhood, but I mean, you do find with a lot of murderers and things, like, you do find a lot, there has been something in their past, but there's just he was just brought up normally, but by the age he was 10 he wanted to go to slaughterhouses. I mean, where did that come from?
Exactly.
How did he know what a slaughterhouse was at age 10? I don't think I would have even thought about.
Well, exactly.
No, maybe you would have back in the day.
Well, maybe.
I don't know. I'm just going to shut up because I don't know.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I just find it incredibly weird that his parents would even allow him to go and witness that.
Yeah,
at that age, especially, I mean...
I think if my child said, "What do you want to do today, John?" What's his name? What's his name again? Carol.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. That's my husband. What do you want to do, Carol? Oh, can we go to the slaughterhouse? I'd be like, no. Why don't we go for a swim?
Yeah, exactly.
Why
Let's
do we go to the
park
zoo?
or the park or something. Yeah, I just don't get why you would agree for him to go to a slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously things were a lot different. But,
Yeah, of course. I mean, maybe they thought it'd be a learning curve. Oh, this is where your bacon comes from.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I really don't know.
But yeah.
But,
yeah.
so, thank you to everybody for listening. If you would like to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter and Instagram at crime_divers_pod. Our email is crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. We're on YouTube, Crime Divers Podcast. We're on TikTok, Crime Divers Podcast. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can pop on over to buymeacoffee.com/crime-divers and it just costs you the price of a cup of coffee. Or if you'd like to join our Patreon for bonus episodes and ad-free episodes, early access episodes, it's patreon.com/crime-divers.
And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.